Hello and welcome to a book review by Warhammer 40k bookreviews.com. Today I'm going to be talking about the Horus Heresy book, The Outcast Dead. Now, The Outcast Dead is a bit special in terms of Horus Heresy books, in that it takes place pretty much entirely on Terra, at or around the continent-sized Imperial Palace, which sits atop of the Himalayan mountain range. Terra is often referred to in the Warhammer 40k books, but we're rarely treated with more than a glimpse into this world and the people who live in the cradle of the Imperium. In The Outcast Dead, we get quite a lot of interesting insight into the glorious wonder of the Imperial Palace and the not so glorious squalor of the Petitioner City, which sits right next to it, populated by desperate souls from all over the Imperium, come to plead their case before the Emperor, or simply get a glimpse of the incredible palace. The story follows partly a couple of psykers, an astropath, and a navigator, as well as a small group of space marines from some of the legions that turned their backs on the Imperium. These space marines were unlucky enough to be on Terra when Horus rebelled, and they found themselves thrown into the most secure dungeons of the palace for fear that they themselves were also traitors. The book spends the majority of the time following the astropath Kai Sulane, who is being sent to the Astropath Academy, the City of Sight, for retraining. Kai lost his powers to communicate across space and time following a tragic event on board the ship that he was previously stationed on. Much of the book focuses on Kai's struggle to deal with these events and face his fears, and the book does a really good job of making Kai a believable character that you can sympathize with. He's a pawn in a much bigger game than he can hopefully ever comprehend, and he is trapped in it, gifted with valuable powers that the Imperium needs, but utterly unable to have any say in deciding his own destiny. The imprisoned Space Marines are far from powerless, though. I don't think I will spoil anything by saying that their incarceration does not exactly proceed as planned, and soon they find themselves in the shantytown streets of the Petitioner City, pursued both by the Imperial forces and by a brutal gang that rules the slums. A gang that seems to be more than just your average crowd of head-bashing criminals, I might add. Events end up intertwining with all the major protagonists, and the book delivers a satisfying conclusion that brims with the ambiguous, grim-dark things ended up kind of good but also kind of horrible feeling that any Warhammer 40k book should. The Outcast Dead offers an extended glimpse into the world of the astropaths and fleshes them out beyond the shriveled up forms of warp addicts that they're most commonly portrayed as in Warhammer 40k. Perhaps I could complain that the book almost makes astropaths seem a little too normal, but maybe the astropaths in the 31st millennium were not as badly mangled by their duties as we know in the 41st millennium. The book also offers some interesting details about the workings of the astropath communication and the machinery on Terra that is needed to make it all function. So if you are into that kind of stuff, like I am, that alone makes the Outcast Dead a worthy purchase. There are also a few passages that feature the Emperor himself, actually. I have a somewhat ambiguous relationship when it comes to authors actually trying to write the Emperor into the Warhammer 40k books. On one hand, he is obviously the most interesting character of the setting, being a near immortal psyker of almost limitless power and having created the Imperium from the ground up. But his incredible power and legendary status is also why he's probably best not to actually include him very much in the Warhammer 40k books, as any description of the Emperor feels as if it does not do justice to the legend. By trying to describe the semi-divine, the writers usually just end up making it feel more mundane. It's a tough problem, and I wonder how this will be handled once we eventually get a book that describes the actual siege of Terra and the battle between the Emperor and Horus itself. However, I don't think it's handled terribly in the Outcast Dead at least, so I won't complain too much about it there. Closing out, I can easily recommend the Outcast Dead to anyone that is a fan of the Horus Heresy series, wants to know more about the Astropath, or just about any fan of the Warhammer 40k books in general. I give the Outcast Dead 4 out of 5 chainswords.